Rabbit. September the 1st. Good morning. Thank you for joining me again for another morning of spiritual practice and just the tuning in the morning, right? I woke up this morning, September 1st, and I could feel the coolness starting to creep in. So maybe we'll just do a little bit of this. Tuning in to your breath. Just take the neck all around a few times. Again, we can roll the shoulders. The neck and shoulders is probably one of the more important places to begin the movement, just because all those nerves running down from the head into the spinal cord. So you've got all the nerve plexuses beneath that, and you can even just maybe rub down in your lower back around the kidneys and just fire those up with a little bit of heat this morning. Got my morning breakfast here. This is the Forager organic dairy-free cashew yogurt. I love this stuff. It is so good. So good. I've tried a lot of other non-dairy yogurts too. And there's a couple of coconut ones that I like, but this one's so good. And I never have seen cherry flavor before, and it's good. So I have some fun stuff today. I want to read to you a little bit out of the Lemurian Science of Peace. This is by Almin, one of my mentors, entering the higher reality of mastery. His books are a bit hard to come by anymore because she's not teaching. Tried to get online and buy some of them up so that I wouldn't lose the opportunity. So there's a couple of pages at the beginning that I would like to read, since I do believe we're moving from the duality reality into a unity field. So she speaks about overcoming the cause of pain, which is separate polarities. And she says, when two poles exist, one thrives at the expense of the other. While living in polarity, life is subject to the law of compensation. The one gains at the expense of the other, and this causes pain and guilt. So, it goes on to say, the overcoming of conflict. The law of compensation decrees that for every gain there is a loss. This places guilt on those who gain and pain for those who sustain the loss. Yet a loss cannot really ever occur. It is just that resources are passed around, the way the ball is passed around during a tennis match. The answer to healing this tug of war between the proactive and the receptive poles has many components. And I'll go into those, understanding the masculine and the feminine, because I do believe this is really what's healing right now in reality, even though we're seeing it play out, say, in political parties or between science and religion. I'm seeing that. I think the root cause is the separation between masculine and feminine. And I heard somebody else say that. I'm trying to think who it was. I think it was Magenta Pixie. I think she said it. And I agree. So, let's look at that. Understanding the masculine and feminine. The proactive masculine role and the receptive feminine role can be seen from 3 levels of perception. The lowest level, perspective. The lowest level sees some creations as feminine, some as masculine. This creates a reality with great conflict as they battle for supremacy, or one abdicates its role in favor of the other. The second scenario provokes catastrophe to break up the resulting stagnation. Yeah, this is actually making me think about, I have to use the political example right now because, you know, they say there's a silent majority that are Republican in this country, and you're seeing a very lean to the left disruption, and it's almost like it's provoking the other side to stand up because there's been a stagnation or a sleepiness. So that's what this is saying. And I have related the Democratic and Republican Party currently to masculine, feminine, gone a little bit awry. I'll talk about that in a minute. Well, actually, right now is a good time to mention it. Because the feminine, in her glory, in her divine presence, has a wildish nature that is also loving and compassionate. But in her distorted version, it appears as craziness and destruction. First of all, because there's not self-love. And second of all, there's not like the compassionate understanding of spirit. It's just like this bottled up energy of not being understood, bursting out in like this rage. Okay, so there's that element that is like a distorted, unseen feminine energy. Okay, and then on the other side, and that's playing out in the Democrats and the liberal parties and in the anarchy in the street, which some say all are the same. So then you have the masculine in his need to control, his distortion of being the protector and the space holder for that wildish energy, to allow it to have a place, to have a voice, and actually to be supported. Instead, we have this a judgmental and a constrictive mindset that disallows. I mean, it's all about law and order, which, you know, is an important thing in a societal structure. But it's also judgmental, and it also thinks the other side is crazy, because it kind of is, you know. So there's a distortion in like being too rigid and being too like wild, right? So the healing of that would allow the coexistence and not the need for the judgment or the like pure destructive element of the other one, even though there is destructive element in the divine feminine, but it comes in the assistance of the death process, and we will talk about that as well. It's funny, I'm feeling the fall has a way here. I wake up with a little bit of congestion, so I think I need to do a neti pot this morning. Okay. I would do a video on that, but I think there probably is already some, and it's a little weird. Okay, the middle perspective. So we went from the lowest perspective, now we're at the middle. Androgyny, or genderlessness, takes place when judgment that favors one pole over another ceases. At that time, both poles express equally in dynamic balance. This means there is but a slight variance of emphasis as one pole or another expresses. So the emphasis just shifts, and it's just a slight variation. There's much less opposition and hardship in such reality. So both poles express equally in dynamic balance. There's just an emphasis like this. Okay? Within polarity, we are cut off from the limitless resources of invisible source. Resources are generated by the back and forth movement between the poles. Thus, when there is little movement between poles, resources decline and financial depression could result. Okay, so in the middle, the energy needs to be going back and forth. And just like in dynamic balance, one expressing, other expressing. But when there's been such a disconnect, then it's like a catastrophic effect on the other to kind of wake each other up, which happens in relationship, right? And then, so we need that push-pull. We need the emphasis to go to the one and then to the other, and then to the one and then to the other, and then to what's going on for you and what's going on for me, and your big idea and mine, and your emotions and mine. And this honoring generates abundance, actually. The highest perspective. The poles become one in this stage. There's no tension between the poles. It is the gap between breaths, the null point of existence in which there is no tomorrow or yesterday. There is just life unfolding now. Opposition and oneness are expressing simultaneously. The moment is the place of self-sufficiency, where all dependence of any kind ceases. The moment is the fulcrum point of existence, where past and future meet and life and death embrace. It contains all and creates all by dividing itself in a never-ending sequence, reflecting it outward as our environment. The moment is the one from which many came, yet it does not exist. Any point has as itself a center point, which in turn has a center point, and center point, so on into infinity. Anything with an opposite really does not exist. Thus neither does the one nor the many. So we're getting pretty existential here. So let's pause with that for a moment and think about, excuse me, ooh, tickle. Let's do a little breathing practice to feel that pause between the breath, that null point that is the mergence, because of course the breath is opposites, inhale, exhale. And she's saying nothing with an opposite truly exists. That's the illusion, the separation. So the null point is the pause between the breaths where those two merge into one. And that's also true in our dynamics between the masculine and feminine when we've reached the point of total honoring of the present and the play of energy back and forth is almost like separation ceases to exist, and you're acting as one body instead of two. That's the relationship in that way, right? You're acting as one instead of two. The birth of something new in divine union. Okay, so we're going to take a deep breath in. And you're going to just pause at the top, hold it, and then release. And then you're going to, at the bottom, hold it out. And just feel that pressure for a moment. And then inhale again. Pause. Exhale. So in deep meditation, one actually goes into, that pause is called kumbhak in Sanskrit. You go actually into a suspension of breath in deep meditation, which is kind of a ceasing of the regular in and out breathing process. There is a sustaining that happens that is not needful to inhale or exhale. Consciousness accesses breath 100% in that kumbhak, right? And that still space that is the null point. That is the 0 point of our breathing. And of course, we can practice that pause between breaths and like get a sense and feel into that point of tension. And the point is not to hold your breath in meditation at all. It's a natural ceasing of the breath. And when it happens, you can identify it in that space. You're like, oh, I'm not breathing right now. I'm just existing. This cherry is so good. So good. I had a very detailed dream last night. I was with someone very funny who was doing comedy, which is something I really love to do and have been wanting to do more publicly. And that's maybe something I've been chicken to do. So we'll see what comes. We'll see what comes of this morning time together. I'm being so serious right now. But this stuff is good. Really good material. The last thing I want to read to you this morning is just this short poem. That's 2 pages, right here and here, called The Birth of Death. Okay? And this is from the Serendisi Records of Life and Death, which Almi translated. Here we go. Long have we fought duality's brain. Long have we sought to eliminate pain by ridding ourselves of separation and duality and linear time caused by polarity. From this desire, transformation formed. From transformation, death was born. Its role to eliminate the obsolete was caused by our inability to see. We saw the separation and thought it was wrong. We thought that in oneness we belong. Whenever opposites exist, real they cannot be. Separation is imagined by the way we see. Oneness and separation are each other's opposite. They can therefore in reality not exist. Let our eyes be healed from polarity, that oneness and separation both can be seen. There's space and spacelessness at the same time. To see this, eliminate mind, for it desires to know and categorize, separating oneness seen with our eyes. Experience life through the eyes of a child. Resist the temptation to categorize. Naught can be known or defined It's just a lie conceived of by mind. All that exists can be imagined as separated. All has existed forever, hasn't been created. Yet only parts of what is are expressing on the stage. Off stage, all other players wait. Let it be known that what we resist will beyond its time continue to persist. The stage of life crowded became, instead of in the wings, all players are on stage. Unbearable it feels the pressure of life has become, crowded and confusing and discordant to some. Reflected in bodies that become obese, let the untimely presences now cease. Ooh, you feel that? Let the untimely presences now cease. It's not supposed to be everything all at once. It's moving our focus around this. Both poles are valid, existing together. Means all that is has been forever. When one is emphasized within the whole, the other still exists in a more dominant role, or dormant role, sorry. When one is emphasized within the whole, the other still exists in a more dormant role. The proactive and dormant play out at one time. The past and present are not in a line. They exist all at once. Together they flow, changelessly changing as life unfolds. So, again, that's the Lemurian science of peace, entering the higher reality of mastery by Almin. There's all kinds of good things, and here she goes back through all the cycles, I think, to like, she started out. Just so much good stuff in here. 12 pairs of pure emotions, clearing past incarnational cycles, poetry of dreaming and poetry of awakening. She goes back through the rape of cosmic life force center. There's so much good stuff in here. And that's something I'm going to read for later. Okay, let's look at the tarot card of the day. All right, what is the element of the day? One card just fell right out. It's Five of Pentacles. So Pentacles is the material realm. Five is the card of change and sometimes conflict. And you can see in this card there's some sadness, walking around in the snow, but all the while there's these cathedral lights on. So there's a sadness, there's a loss in this card, but there's also good things if you take the time to look at what they are, not just be consumed in the sadness and loss. You could be feeling left out. So this might be happening in your personal life. This also might be the collective energy. I think I'm going to pull a clarifying card too. Oof. Okay, Ten of Swords, but upside down. So this is like deep defeat and loss and all that, death. But this is the completion of that. So there has been a death, a complete loss. Swords are mental and our belief structures and are the mind. So it can also be the end of a lot of really defeating thoughts. Also the swords could fall out here, so it's finally the end. The 10 is the completion card. Oh, those two cards are rough. I'm going to pull from Native Spirit Oracles to get some balm for this, because now it feels like we have passed through a gate. I always notice this at the end of August. It's almost like the seasons are aware that it's the last day of August, and the cool breeze of September, at least in the northern hemisphere, comes blowing in. And it was really chilly yesterday, and so there's definitely like a feeling of sadness and loss, just of the brightness of summer and the heat of the sun and the long days, kind of going into the darker times. But as we just read, like to bring ourselves into the present is to honor that back and forth, right? To see the beauty in all the parts, including the losses and the sadness. Like, there's not really loss, it just takes another form, or emphasis changes location for a while, right? So to be able to honor that is to not be too attached to any form or any way something's showing up. And that is the lesson. Okay, so this is the guidance card for the day. Oh, how beautiful. We started at the drum, and we get the thunder drum as today's guidance card. I want to read this because it's lovely. These cards are by Denise Lynn, Native Spirit Oracle cards. Okay, thunder drum. Stand up and be counted. Be assertive. Don't be shy about sharing your gifts and letting the world know about your value. Declare with authority. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. Make a stand for others less fortunate. Take risks. Walk in rhythm to the beat of your own drum. This is not the time to step back or step aside. Your native spirit wants you to know, throughout the world, indigenous people have called spirit through drumming. Drumming was used to activate one's fighting spirit before battle, as well as for joyous celebrations and sacred ceremonies. It was also used for healing rituals. In every case, the drum beat was used to open to spiritual realms. A thunder drum calls the thunder beings from the sky, and they arrive with passion and incredible vitality. Drawing this card means it's time to step into your passions more fully. Make a stand in life for what truly matters to you. The journey? A powerful way to activate your life force is to drum on your chest lightly with closed fists. It's especially powerful if you do a two beat, similar to the sounding of a beating heart. Boom, 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 boom. This activity is grounding and it strengthens you. So let's do that. Boom, 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 boom. This actually reminds me of another one of the yogas that I learned through Almeen, the Irash Sattva yoga. Sometime we'll have to do a little of that. There is some tapping in that on various points, and this is one of them. So doing this, and also just with fingers, this activates the high heart and also your thymus gland, which is your body's main immune master gland. So that's super powerful for calling in, invoking your own inner spirit, your own inner divine energy, essence. Back you up here for just a moment. Let's see. Reaching. All right. I didn't start with any Palo Santo, but I will begin to close up with it. Just a couple more things. I'd like to share a gemstone of the day also. And with thanks to Meadows Crystals in Lehi, Utah. Meadow is a dear, dear friend of mine. She has an incredible shop, an online shop called Meadows Crystals. She sources ethically sourced stones, just the highest quality, most beautiful things. So I've got a labradorite that I got at her shop here with me today. Labradorite is actually the only stone that has this labradorescence, this sort of catching of the light in this way. Some stones, the spectrolite is in the labradorite family, so that has a little bit of similar inflex, as you can see how the light moves across the layers of the colors, especially the blues and the greens in here. It's especially magical stone. And today it feels like a really good stone to carry and use. It does awaken third eye faculties, which we discussed a little more yesterday, but always important to be able to hear and listen to the sound of spirit within you, to find that place of balance where you can honor the polarities showing up so as to help eliminate them through perspective. It really is through perspective that this work happens. So there's a tarot card that's the Two of Pentacles, where he's trying to balance two pentacles. And upright, it is speaking of balancing priorities and balancing tasks, and this sort of, it's got the figure 8 that connects the pentacles, and it's sort of like anytime that you've got things going on, but you're able to balance them. And I specifically am thinking it right now in terms of this masculine-feminine dynamic, and helping connect them and find the balance. But the reversal of that card is that totally not being true. And I think anytime we bring our focus and attention to some new thing in our life that is out of whack, it feels like at first really unmanageable. But then it is through the honoring of the perspectives, which is shadow work, which is something I do with people, is seeing the value of both of these polarities starts to bring them into this ability to work together in dynamic balance, right? And the focus just shifts from one to the other, to one to the other, to one to the other, until pretty soon it's like that Mama Sambo, or what's that old story where the Johnny Sambo or something runs around and around the tigers and they turn to butter for his pancakes. Do you know that one? Little Boy Sambo, I think. I read it when I was little. Loved that story. But that's the alchemy of like the continuing to do something over and over and over, and the continuing to have a difficult thing come up and be able to shift your attention to valuing that thing. And I think that's what the season we're moving into, and maybe even the tarot cards today, which is like we're at the end of the cycle that's the defeat. And even though there may be some sadness about it, the card is a change card. So the 5 is asking us to see the lights in the window, to notice that there are blessings to this passage, to this death process, and to honor it and to allow it. Yesterday I spoke about reality being like in a funeral space, and in that death or dying energy that is also coming in fall, winter, as we're approaching, that I sniff in the air today. This is the energy we have been repelling, and why it's showing up so big right now is the opportunity for all conscious beings who've been able to honor all of the other parts of the cycle to honor this part too. So if you don't have some labradorite, get yourself some, and we'll just close out. Tune into your breath. Take a deep breath. And just tune into your body. Take a moment to give thanks for all the way your body is showing up for you today. You're alive, you're in it. You wiggle your fingers, press out into your palms, stretch, ride, breathe in through every single fingertip. Squeeze the fingers together. Rotate into the wrists. Bring some divine light energy in through the wrists in both directions. Reach out to the sides, up over your head, and a little bit of stretch side to side. Oof. And really lift through the spine. Ooh. And exhale. And pushing forward again. Bringing your palms together. Rotate through the neck. And just let some sounds fall out of your mouth. Deep breath, hold it. Slowly let it out. Bring all your attention into your feet. Exhale through your feet. And just imagine holding that exhale breath out to the soles of your feet, connecting with Gaia. And then breathe it in again. Sending you into the day with the thunder drum, the pure vision of the labradorite, and the remembrance to honor all parts of the cycle, including the shedding and the releasing of the old. Do something nurturing for yourself this morning. This is Stasia Bliss. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you find bliss in your house today. We'll catch you next time. I'm out.